Okay, I just started the stream. I'm just gonna wait a second before we start to make sure everything's running on Twitch's end. And I will lead with our beautiful stock footage. Here, someone else say something just to make sure all the audio is coming through on the Twitch. I don't think I heard Jacob on Twitch. Yeah, so 11:04 is here. Yeah, so what we have today is two guys from 11:04. One's kind of a guest in, and no, so a couple of them they're feeling a little better. So there's two guys, and they're in the audio, but it's not coming through correctly. Yeah, but we can hear you. Audio output. But I'm not. Yeah, I thought it'd be funnier. I thought it'd be better if there just weren't. The pictures were creepy. Um, no one liked the pictures. But the audio is not coming in correctly. Here, Jacob, I know this is really annoying, but you just like count to 10. It's not seeing my audio coming into my computer at all, even though it was before. Oh, is he getting on? Okay. Yeah. Yep, I just saw it. And I'm just going to play the, no, I'm not going to play, I'm going to put on this robot skills run. So programming skills run that someone was showing us yesterday. Just while I... I'm going to put on this robot skills run. So programming skills run that someone was showing us yesterday.
Maybe someone should bump the VEX forum post and post on Facebook and Twitter.
And put on this robot skills run. So programming skills run that someone was showing us yesterday.
Maybe someone should bump
Just while
the
Okay, now everyone's coming through. I
Okay.
fixed it.
Post on Facebook and Twitter.
Okay, so yeah, all the audio is working now.
Put on this robot skills run. So programming skills run that someone was showing us here. Okay.
Yep. Okay. So let's begin, I guess. Okay. So the main kind of topic today is skills skills, and we have a couple other things we're talking about as well. But I'm just gonna get us started on the things we've been kind of talking about. Is we have an 8059 programming skills run. I'm just gonna kind of warn everyone though. Uh, it was a robot pretty much entirely designed for this programming skills run. It's like it's not going to be something they're going to be using at Worlds. It might be some like predecessor to what they use at Worlds, but it's just like they're not like we're not like holding them to anything like that they have this kind of robot. So here is the video. Um, and because we have some guests, I'm just going to link it to them as well. Um, actually, Tom, if you would link it to everyone in Discord, that'd be appreciated. Just one of the Google Drive videos. Um, and so for the most part, yeah. So a lot of 1104 people are here and they can't video, and we're trying out if we'd prefer to not to have no video rather than this ridiculous pictures. So the main thing about the 1104, so why am I saying 1104? The 8059 programming skills we're watching is it really proves the point we were talking about before about how you could do a 320 programming skills run with literally nothing on the robot. It's incredibly minimalist. It pretty much is, to me, I haven't actually talked to him much about the exact details. Looks like a two-motor puncher, and pretty much two-motor puncher and any strafing capability. And they could do this run. They have two punchers for ease, but that's not
Yeah.
even necessary.
You'll see that a lot with teams that use punchers. They'll have two of them because it's very difficult to reach over and load at the correct speed.
I think that a lot of people just underestimate how easy it is to build one of these robots. You only need like a 1.1 ball per second firing rate to get a 320 point programming skills.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
with any sort of intake, you could easily break 330.
Yes, but of course, the drawback to these is that you can only do programming skills with them and score well.
Yeah, you can only qualify off of something like programming skills. Colin is now replacing everyone from 1104.
Yeah. All right.
He's this pile of people. That looks worse. I did not think that through. Yeah, so this is they don't really he doesn't like talk that much like on this before, but this is 1104M. It's main member Colin, who's with us
Yep. Nice
because
to
the
meet
other
you, everybody.
1104 guys are out sick.
And he currently holds the number one robot skill score on Earth.
Hmm.
And in all the other planets that compete with VEX.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah, of course. In pretty much in the universe. Actually, because Nothing But Net is the highest scoring Vex game ever, it's the highest scoring robot skills that has ever existed in the
Ever.
universe.
Ah, very true. It is.
Because the other one, the
Never even
closest would
thought
be
about it that
Jack's
way.
400 in Sack Attack, but that's nowhere near as good.
Yeah, no. I personally, I think 500 is going to be more like this year's 500 is going to be like Sack Tax 400, where if you get a really really good run, you can get it. But the
Yeah,
problem is you just get so few runs at Worlds.
I'm not even sure if I think it'd be higher because I know like Jack had only achieved 400 once, not at Worlds, and so that with that robot he hadn't even gotten it before, or he'd gotten it once. Like it was insane when he scored it. So I would even say it'd be higher. I could see 500 happening at Worlds, assuming loading isn't like out of a bag. I could see there being a good chance of it happening. compared to no one thought 400 was coming. But yeah, I mean it's the same kind of just crazy optimized system that we saw then.
Yeah, no, the only problems I see is how balls roll, because if you get 3 runs where you get unlucky with bonus balls, you just won't score high.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm just gonna play the other video that's interesting because so here's someone else doing a 320 programming skills run with a full normal robot, and they miss balls repeatedly. It's you can just see how if you build a full robot, your expectation is to do everything. It doesn't do the couple things. I mean, jack of all trades, master of none. It's not as good, and it's a far harder to build than the really simple 8059 320s programming robot. This is about the same score, and the amount of robot difference is just crazy.
I think the big difference is just the accuracy on the flywheel is a little worse, but the fact they have an intake makes up for it, grabbing those balls on the way across.
Yeah, it does. It goes a long way, but bringing things from the intake does add a lot of complexity.
Yeah.
I was trying to get that to update, but it did not. Yeah, I mean, there's just like only so much you can do without an intake. That robot 8059 one is completely limited at that point. It can never go higher, which is pretty obvious that robot's not going to be scoring 500 any day. Yeah, someone asked why Colin was not sick. Um, he's
I
just
don't I
like,
don't live near the
yeah,
other guys.
yeah,
I didn't catch what was going around.
yeah. I was gonna make a joke like, um, Canadian winners don't phase him because he's not in Canada, but let me.
Okay.
So yeah, so we've all seen these two. I just have them on loop, but we've all seen these kind of videos.
Yeah, if anybody is listening to this that hasn't qualified for Worlds or is still looking to, going by its programming skills, if you're competing with a robot like the 8059 skills robot at your state tournament or something, that would be a pretty darn good third pick if you can get all the match loads in. So it wouldn't be entirely useless in competition, even though it's not nearly as good as robots with a regular intake.
Yeah, so it's not a
Right.
full robot, but it can do a job and it can do it pretty well. The one fear would be, I don't know if that robot can full court, like actually full court.
I believe that it could. You just have to add more elastics, and the rate would be slower. Of course, I don't think they use all the motors that they're allowed on that
Yeah, yeah.
skills robot.
Tom,
So it's definitely possible.
Tom.
Sorry, I just lost audio there for a second.
Yeah, I think Tom might have cut
Yeah.
his audio might have come out. Okay. Yeah, we can't hear you, Tom. I'm just going to assume he's agreeing that currently it could not full court, but if they made a few minor changes, they could. So I'm just going to assume he agreed with us. Uh,
Linear punchers are also really easy to build if they don't have an intake going to them.
yeah,
So
oh yeah.
if you're a team that's looking to bring this to a competition, take it off with 4 screws and put on a full court one. It's only one subsystem that you're changing out.
Yeah, linear punchers are they're incredibly rugged. It's hard to get them to make every single shot, but you can in an hour and a half you can make a linear puncher that could score, I don't know, 25, even 30 of the 32 balls in a really reasonable short period of time. Okay, so now the other thing that's we've kind of been hyping a little bit is this China skills video.
Ah.
I need to find that so I can send that to everyone. Because I've been, but it's running if any of the other streamers are on. If anyone else wants to look at it on Twitch, it just started.
So the first thing you'll notice when they start is that they're going to miss a lot.
Yeah, that's the big thing. Is they miss. Their
A
fire rate
lot.
is on par with like the best teams in the world in robot skills. But
But they miss everything.
yeah, they miss noticeably.
But of course, their fielding makes up for that in part. But going a little bit slower would probably increase their score significantly.
Okay, yeah. So everyone that's streaming, I just posted it in Discord, just if anyone hasn't already seen this. I was showing it to most people beforehand, but some of the people that just have been busy or guests. Yeah, someone's making fun of the layout. So a lot of guys are sick from Disco Bots, and one guy kind of came in, so I'm having him just cover that whole section. His picture, just kind of it's funny, and he's also his picture is proportional to his robot skill score. It's about the size of Tom's robot skill score plus Jacob's robot skill score. Um, so it makes sense. Yeah, that what? Okay. So yeah, so the interesting thing we were talking about this video, they miss a lot on the first run of diver loads, but then actually on the second run they miss maybe one or two. They miss like one or two total, and it seems to be that they're going now that they have some time, they slow it down and they make a ton more in compared to the beginning, which it'll loop back around in a second. We see them miss a lot right off the bat when they're still getting up to speed or getting in the right sweet spot. They're missing quite a bit.
Yeah, what I see from the run is just a lot of side to side inaccuracy. Their front back accuracy looks pretty darn good. So if they just slowed that down even a tiny bit to let the two sides of the flywheel match each other,
Yeah, and
it'd
that
be a
was my
lot,
thought
lot
as well. Is it
faster.
seems like the two flywheels are out of sync because if you gear them together, it slows you down a lot because you have to have a lot of gears. Um, or like maybe a chain. It's difficult to gear them together and still be efficient, but it's you start getting issues like this if they're not geared together. It seems like they're not like yeah they're not in sync side to side. But it's definitely a really good run and they're really well built robot. So now the other thing we are so I guess that kind of leads us into the discussion of skill scores for the cutoff. So that's in like 3 weeks, 2 weeks, 2 weeks.
Yeah.
What we think we're gonna see. And so I know a lot of us talked about it, but Colin's here and he hasn't been in those discussions before. So Colin, what do you think the skill scores cutoffs are gonna be?
So I would be surprised if either of them are below 320. Uh, but I have absolutely no idea because right now there's only 11 programming skill scores that are 320 or above.
Yeah,
I think a lot of people will get on that at states. I think a lot of people have something like that 859 robot that can just get a good programming skill score regardless of competition. But I have absolutely no idea.
yeah.
I know
So
that 104 focused a lot on skills, so that way we didn't have to worry about being super stressed out at Ontario provincials because there's a lot of good teams competing in Ontario and anything can happen. And some teams who are the best in their region and are confident about winning at states or at provincials don't necessarily need to worry about that and don't have as big a focus on skills.
yeah, so it's definitely like, and we can definitely tell you guys care about it. 6 of the top 10. It's pretty ridiculous. But yeah, so it appears to only be about yeah 13 or something are higher than 320 in uh in programming skills, and that's like lower than you would expect. Yeah, right now the cutoff is 310, but it's so easy to beat 310. And in the
And a
310,
lot,
311 region, there's like 10 of them.
yeah, in the very competitive regions, most of them haven't had their regional competitions yet. So that's going to end up boosting those scores for the teams that haven't brought out their refined versions of their robots yet.
Yeah, I could definitely see 2 or 3 coming out of New Zealand this weekend, and then um,
A few from Texas and California.
some easy ones from Canada might just grab a 320 at their provincials on the 5th, um, and they would double qualify, and that spot would be lost. Because it'd be
Yeah,
very easy for those robots that are doing 420 to do a 320 run.
yeah, I'm pretty sure a lot of 320s in programming skills are going to be seen at our provincials.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're looking to get a little higher than 320. I can't promise anything though. My programming's not that great.
But even like 345 with a couple misses is pretty reasonable. Is pretty easy as well. Oh, I'm assuming Nayland is Nathan Allen from the VEX database in the comments saying that there's not very very many good programming skill scores. That's pretty funny. I don't know. Wingus and Dingus usually have something like that. I could see them doing pretty well, coming out with one. 320's not that hard.
I can see them coming up with a very competitive driver skill score, even if they're not focusing on programming.
Yeah, and it's like it's really weird saying how something's easy this year when we know for a fact there's 12,000 teams and 20 teams in the world have done it. But we can see from the 8059 videos when teams focus on something, it's incredibly basic to achieve. The problem I think people have is I'm putting the video back up. The problem people have is they try so the best teams do everything, and so every team that's medium thinks the best thing to do is to do everything, and they end up being very poor at all of them. And it seems like if we had robots, if people were building simple robots like 8059s, they would be getting the same scores. It's not some magic property. So I guess I will move on to we have a little exclusive 1104 match that we're gonna show. Um, and so I just started it. We're it's a little old, but it's a pretty good team. Well, it's because it's a little old. The robot's pretty good, and it's still like probably even some depending on the state and depending on the region, like champion worthy in those regions. But there's definitely things you can see that can be improved on, as we can all assume they have since this video was taken.
Yeah, this video is about early December, late November.
And these are the same robots that are on the Simbots live stream. The one that the 377 world highest score was ripped from.
Yeah.
Yep. And I think something to be just talked about is we see a lot of the robots like the double flywheel misses a lot because when it's shooting close, its angle is almost completely parallel to the angle of the net. So there's a tiny area that it can actually go into the net on. And then we see 1104V when the balls come in, they come in almost perfectly perpendicular to the net's plane and dead center. So if there was any like change, if they had gone a little left, a little right, a little forward, a little backwards, it would still go in the net. And we see a lot of robots that don't have that.
Yeah, to me, that's the biggest issue I see with the full coining design that was kind of popularized by 99W Summer Reveal, is because it shoots it almost perpendicular to the ground, just a tiny angle upwards. And if you have any left-right inaccuracy, you're not going to make shots.
Yeah. We see the nice like lob shots, which are inherently the most efficient type of shots. In terms of just energy it takes. So it seems that they find it's easier to waste energy on the system, and they don't notice that it's definitely gonna have less fire rate, and the consistency is probably gonna go down if your angles aren't coming in nice, clean, perpendicular to the opening in the net. And so this is like a high scoring match, and there was almost a lift, but we saw the two robots come and block them as much as they could.
Yeah, I think it's about 510 combined without a lift. So with zero lifts, meaning it could have been 610 combined if both teams had a high lift. And to me, the biggest thing is that none of the robots in this match have a crazy high rate of fire full court. And you really don't need that 10 balls per second or that 5 balls per second that a lot of teams try to boast about on the forums because it's simply not needed.
Yeah, it's pretty much a skills gimmick more than it is anything else. But that's funny coming.
Because
It's a funny opinion coming from the person top in skills. I'll just. But yeah, it's near shots. The rate of fire of those is incredibly important because you want to get
Yeah.
back to picking up more balls during the
your
contested
cycle
ball pool.
time,
Yeah,
your cycle time is very important. Your cycle time is going to determine the match.
but the rate of fire of the full court, we see 1104V just one ball a second, and they just never miss. And it comes in at this nice angle, and it's this nice efficient shot. And I actually don't know anything about this robot, but based on the rate of fire, I could see that flywheel being done with 2 motors rather than like 4, like just with that rate of
Because
fire.
I can recall Technic Junior having a one motor single flywheel that can shoot full court at roughly 1 ball per 3 seconds. So it's definitely possible to do it with 2.
Yeah. It should definitely. I think that defense going around this lift is really interesting because like when the balls are gone, there's nothing else to do. So one person going to elevate, it sounds perfect. You can elevate. It's the only points left on the field. But if elevating is the only points left on the field, your opponents are very inclined to not let you get those points. And when you have these big ramps that take up the entire protected zone, the other robot is unprotected when it gets into the zone.
Yeah. And back to the double flywheel, I believe that's 1404B that has that. And they've since become very, very accurate with it. And it's because they have a slightly different angle.
Yeah, and so obviously now they're second highest. Second highest in robot skills. I was reading a chat comment that made me stop for a second.
All right.
Um, so we've been trying to like have a bunch of as much time as we can for questions. So if anyone has questions or anything, um, because this is kind of a special episode of the VEX Cast, rather than like just have scheduled discussion topics, we're trying to show some videos, analyze the videos, and then wrap up in rather than the full hour, wrap up a little early. But if there's questions, we are all happy to give our best shot at answering them. So I see someone asking when the link to the Chinese skills. I was linked to that and the video is unlisted. I do not know if that's something I can give out, or I would. It's just like not my. Um, I know with 1104's video in this, they they wanted it to be like this kind of setup where people had to like watch through and they couldn't just, I don't know, have the full quality and where they could just sit down and analyze it for hours. And it's just not my place to give a video out unless someone else is willing to.
Yeah, there's a very good chance we'll be putting out other video later, but for now, we don't want to put out a video of a robot that somebody could just sit down at a bench with and a bunch of parts and kind of build a copy of it. We'd much rather share some of the strategy we've used in this match because we think that could definitely elevate the level of play and not necessarily hand out a robot.
Yeah, and so what's really nice is seeing videos like this where you can't see every detail, but you see what's going on. It shows a lot of important things. It shows like what can be done, proof of concept. It shows strategy. Um, Tabor, you're a ramp. I don't think I'm a ramp. Alex Sue. I think you're the one who sent me that video. So are you okay with me giving that video out to other people? Pretty sure. Yeah. The Chinese video that we showed. Are you okay with me linking people to the YouTube video here? I started it so you know exactly which video I'm talking about. Okay, yeah. So Alex Sue just posted it. But I know some of the other things. The 8059 video might be posted at some point, but these streams are always saved, and you can rewatch them on Twitch. If you ever wanted to rewatch any of these videos, you can always find them here.
Yeah, there's also not a
And
lot of ahead.
No, you can go ahead.
I was going to say there's also not a lot to take away from the 8059 robot, which wanted to prove the concept that a very simple robot can do incredibly well in skills.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the driver is starting on the. It's also, yeah, this is a practice run, one thing. But I think that my understanding is the driver is on the right driving area, right out of camera. How can it be official? What? I don't know.
It's a
Some people, it gets dark in the winter pretty early. 426 is definitely impressive. Um, Colin, would you remember what place that would put them in?
I think that's fourth, behind 104M, 1404B, and 104G.
Oh yeah, so
And it's
behind
one
you,
point.
Prob, and
Yeah,
1404.
1 point above Z, which is probably.
Oh no, I'm seeing Z having a. Oh yeah, 426. Yeah. So it would be fourth. That's pretty. It's definitely good. Yeah, I was guessing this was about 380 or in that kind of ballpark, or 380 plus. There's a lot of missing on the early driver loads. It's hard to keep track. Um, okay, that's weird. Oh, I see Jesse in the chat saying it was 420.
Pretty good score. Nice number.
Yep. I know for a while there were some jokes running around of every team that they thought that people were seeing getting highest robot skills, teaming up and never stopping past 420 robot skills. But 1104G scored like a 425 on accident. Or Z did. Whoever scored the 425 first, and then they decided just to everyone go as hard as they could and to give up on the 10-way tie.
Oh well.
But it was definitely. Yeah, 430 was the run where it screwed up their master plan.
Alex got 431.
Yeah, that's one of the biggest things with 426 compared to 425 and 431 compared to 430. There's a low goals are really easy to get in this game, meaning that in previous years where there's tons of ties, it's say 35 points from building to skyrise. There's none of that because 1 point is so easy to come by. So number of runs is a lot less relevant this year, I think.
Yeah, I mean, part of that is even just the scores are a bigger number. So a deviation of 1% does something in this when a deviation of 1% in other games did nothing. Like if you're scoring 40 points, 1% is less than a point. I think this game's been really interesting. It's really like been like blowing my mind with like how much I don't know how much you can do with the Vex parts. I feel like every time I go in thinking that I know what Vex parts can do, and this game's really like told me that I did not know originally. I'm not sure if anyone else has had that like wow Vex actually like I remember I was first thinking Vex motors and Vex bearings. No one's ever gonna shoot a ball into a net. Was my first thought that when the game came out.
Yeah, to me, one of the biggest things is the optimization of motor usage almost because in Skyrise, like, oh, I know that robots can lift that 12, but they're probably going to be really
One's
big,
ever
bulky
gonna shoot a
lifts,
ball
and you
into.
need a ton of motors. And then you saw people had Wingus and Ningus had a 5-stage scissor with 4 motors. That was pretty incredible. And then this year, you see a lot of people starting out with 6-motor flywheels, and then Technic Junior had a 1-motor flywheel that had a pretty darn good fire rate full court.
Yeah, exactly. With one motor, you can get something that can shoot at I don't know, a little under 1 balls per second with a puncher or something or a flywheel. You can do around that kind. You could do something pretty reasonable with the very minimum of parts, and that's been it's been pretty surprising for a while. But it's really been redefining the whole game. But it's really interesting how like different people are good this year, just because the game is just different. Everything about it is different than what we've kind of built up as Vex. The whole idea of like having a storage tray and having an intake and lifting that whole thing up and then going to goal and scoring has pretty much been a premise of every VEX game, and all of those kind of just get thrown out. It makes the robot can be a lot lighter is the other thing. I've been seeing a lot of people on the forum talk about 20-pound robots, like 18-pound robots, and from what I've been seeing though, this year is the lightest robots by far.
Yeah, when I see post about a robot that's as heavy as my Skyrise robot, I cringe a little because there's no reason that a robot needs to be that heavy, guys.
Yeah, this year
Unless you're doing
I would say
unless you're doing 7 LPs, there's no reason.
yeah, I would say this year in the elimination matches, unless you're doing something just different, I can't imagine people being heavier than 15 pounds. And that's even like that's the very high end of the scale, I would say. 10
Yes.
is pretty like average, it's pretty normal average for efficiency robots in this game. And you just need less structure because everything can attach to the chassis. Your intake can be attached to the chassis. The storage can be attached to the chassis. You don't need an extra structure because all of it gets lifted.
Yeah. One of the large problems coming out of Skyrise is that we were so used to having an insane amount of structure on everything because we had to lift things so high and get everything to not fall or bend or break. Because I can remember shearing, hairline cracking, and snapping at least 3 different C channels on my scissor lift.
Yeah, if everything was in Skyrise, we were pushing the parts to the limit, and this year we're definitely pushing the parts to the limit, but in a different way, which I guess is the what says part one thing about Vex and is one thing about us as competitors that we as a community are always pushing, like we're gonna always push the parts to it, whatever limit makes that sense that year. This year we're pushing the parts to the limit in terms of like the axles and the bearings. If you have like a wheel and it gets spinning at a couple thousand RPM, the wiggle you can experience if it's not just absolutely perfect can be pretty big. I've seen some flywheels where like it's not balanced right and the wheel starts shaking.
You get some crazy vibration issues.
And then
Yeah.
last year we were just
This,
putting too much torque on things. So it's different problems, but we're pushing everything to the edge.
yeah.
I,
And
I see a request to put the match video back up.
Yeah, I'm putting it back up.
And this year, there's a lot more focus on build quality. Not that build quality didn't matter before, but if you don't have a certain level of build quality, you're not going to be able to score in the high goal. Whereas any team last year or the year before could score a few points with just what little they knew, or a first year team could be able to score a decent match. They could put in a few Skyrise and a few cubes with a very, not poorly built, but less well put together robot.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
11
can
of 4 is
definitely see
pretty much
that.
all still dead. It's very sad.
Well, continuing that same line, I think each Vex game always has kind of one thing to teach. Not only one thing, obviously, but one main thing. Whereas Skyrise, I think, was a lot about how to build a sturdy lift without just a crazy amount of structure, just throwing steel on the lift or anything. And then this year, it's all about friction, reducing friction as much as you can.
Yeah, those are fair points. Like last year was about being minimalist while still being strong. Um, and this year it's just friction is everything this year. Because before you start running something where you have a tiny bit, like the tiniest bit of torque on something that's running at 100 RPM, like a wheel, or 160 RPM or whatever, and then now you're running it at 2500 RPM, the difference you see is huge. With a little bit, just a little bit of friction can just destroy a high-speed flywheel. I'm looking at the Collins picture now, the one he gave us that's kind of like half the screen. Anyone noticing some 8059 inspiration on that flywheel? It looks like an 8059 flywheel, and then a puncher just kind of smacked on the side.
Yeah, so you can really see from it being turned around. The wheel I actually did, I couldn't decide whether I was going to go for a heavier light flywheel, and I kind of split the difference, which in retrospect was a really, really terrible idea. I originally had actually a fly without the tread, and then I found I need more space, and I just kind of dropped the tread back on. And that flywheel was honestly, it was a pretty horrendous flywheel. If you're trying to compare that flywheel to 89's flywheel, it was god awful. And I actually slapped that linear puncher you can see on the side on Wednesday before a Saturday competition. And it ended up making like 31 or 32 out of the loads almost every single match, which to me just showed how easy it is to make one of those linear punchers. Like, if you guys have a 6 or a 4 motor flywheel and it's not doing full court consistently, take a day or two and build a linear puncher and slap it on the side. A linear puncher is really easy to optimize for full court, but really hard to do for field shots. And a flywheel is the exact opposite. So even if it's a little inefficient, if you're kind of coming down in crunch time to the state championships, like, put them both on the robot. It's not a huge deal. Your robot will be a little fat. It'll be pretty slow. That was a pretty slow robot, but just get it done.
Yeah. But it does seem like in most cases you only ever need one person on the lance doing full court. But if you go into qualification matches without having someone, and if you can't full court, it's gonna hurt you pretty bad. But once you get picked, it's the kind of thing where if you have a slapped on puncher and the other guy's good at full courting, you could even take it off. But fielding everyone needs to be doing. It's like the crazy thing. Like, you can't not field. You can't say I'm only a full court robot.
I see too many people, I kind of touched on earlier, focusing on these insane full court fire rates. And like, that is not necessary. Put those motors on an intake or a drive, or just spend the time optimizing your field shots, because fielding is so important.
Exactly. Um,
See 1104G suggesting that you just drop 4 balls in the loading zone and then do close-up shots, which is a viable strategy if you have fielding robots that are so good you can clear the field in 30 seconds to a minute.
and then you just do trips back and forth.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess.
But it's very risky because
Oh
you
yeah,
run the risk of being blocked and being defended and missing.
and it's pretty insane. So, but it's a funny thing. It's the kind of thing where it's an add the competition strategy. It's not a here's how I should plan to compete. It's a how can I compete this moment sort of thing.
Yeah, that's a holy crap, the ball density is crazy. Time to drop 4 balls on the tile.
Yeah. How we know worlds could be that. Worlds could be like that.
Yeah, that's going to be very interesting how ball densities are going to work at Worlds
Yeah, I'm
because
kind of
they're going to be enough fields there that there's going to be variance, obviously. And I'm interested to see whether they pick out balls that are out of spec because I have seen balls that are horribly out of spec.
Like even outside the expanded size or expanded weight that they gave us later. I think it'd be interesting. I know there's one kind of thing I've been joking with everyone is I think every team should bring the squishiest ball and the hardest ball to Worlds that they have found. And then if we all do that and we all compare them, find what is the squishiest, the softest, and the hardest of every ball that anyone's like found. I think I'd be really interested to know how big the difference gets because
yeah.
I was
For
playing with
me,
one and it was so squishy I didn't think it was possible.
yeah, I had the exact same experience in a competition down in Texas. 118 actually both of those. They had a rock that you could barely compress, holding it between both hands and just forcing it together. And then they also had a ball, I think from the exact same batch, that was so squishy you could actually just hold it in your fist and close your fist. It was the most insane thing I've ever seen.
Yeah, so
Hoping that that's not what Worlds looks like.
I think it'd be an interesting thing if everyone listening and tell everyone to bring the softest and the hardest ball, and I'll have the softest and hardest ball, and I'll just keep comparing them. If yours is harder than the one, I'm gonna stop talking. Um, we'll compare them, and I want to see what the hardest and softest we can do is.
And I'm interested to see how the sample size of ball density for every given robot, the balls that you're given to test with or that you have available to you to test with, affect the performance of your robot.
Yeah, so like if you had been only given the crazy heaviest, and then you go to Worlds, how will that affect where if you'd only been given the softest? It seems on a,
And I
I would say it's people think like, oh, the harder ones are heavier and so they're harder to shoot. It seems to me like the soft ones, because when you compress them, you're getting no force outwards. You get no traction. I think the softest are the ones they just flop. They don't go anywhere.
I think you get really messed up also if you only have soft balls because you'd either have a crazy amount of force on your linear puncher or catapult or something like that, or a ton of compression on your flywheel.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And you get one hard ball through there and suddenly your robot's done.
Yeah, so
Especially in a flywheel. That would kill a flywheel.
I would think if you have one that's optimized for like the middle balls, um, a hard ball will overshoot and kill your flywheel speed, and a soft ball will undershoot. Um,
I've seen a few teams that have plotted curves and graphed them for ball density. And before every match, when they have loads, they test them and they line them up in their loading trays based on density, top to bottom, hardest to softest. And they increase their wheel speed from harder to softer over the course of doing loads to compensate for that.
I think that's well, that's a really funny solution. It can't possibly be the best one. There has to be a way to accommodate for all the balls that doesn't require that. And I think we've been seeing teams based off their scores doing that.
Of course. There's only one ball ever that I've encountered that I could not shoot full court at any speed on my flywheel because it was so incredibly soft. It was one of those balls that you were talking about, Tabor or Colin, that you could close your fist on and it not give.
Yeah, I mean, you just need
So,
like 2 inches of compression or something crazy.
yeah.
Yeah, so I think
But
I'm gonna call the cast unless anyone has any final. Okay,
There's a
go Colin.
there's an just a video of an IQ robot that I posted in the in the Discord, which we could show just one quick run. And it's obviously not VRC, but it's something pretty crazy. I think most people just see what IQ robots are capable of this year.
Oh yeah, I did see this video earlier. Everyone's speakers. Okay. Yeah, let me grab that. Yes, this video is going around a little bit. So I'll get that running, and that'll be kind of our exiting thing. But just last thing I'm gonna say is VEX Cast is brought to you by Vivid Custom PCs. If you ever like building a gaming PC, look them up. And from SMC, the makers of like all the pneumatics we all love. And to ensure good quality on the videos, I actually download each one. So give me a second.
Yeah, take time.
Yeah, it's just like the only good way to get the videos to work.
Somebody says, I think the balls or world's going to be pretty consistent. I hope so. I really hope so. But what I've gotten from talking to people who are affiliated with VEX is a lot of it depends on the weather conditions of the factory the day the balls are made, which
That's
is the most
hilarious.
outrageous thing I've ever heard. But supposedly it's true. So you better hope that there's no crazy weather conditions before Worlds.
When I preset up the videos, I get them all nice and clean, and I have the audio muted and stuff. But I'm just quickly running them. So these robots are the very edge of the size limit in every way.
Yeah, these are some of the craziest IQ robots that I've ever seen. You're just gonna get a wow factor just from looking at these boxes of plastic. And the biggest thing is it's when you see them shoot. I think most people will be. Yeah, it's a 3-minute video. If you can fast forward on now.
Uh, not easily. We'll just get it. We're already like halfway through, I think. We're getting towards the actual stuff starting now. On my end with the 20-second delay. 10-second delay? Not sure exactly. Yeah, but it's definitely worth stick around and watching.
Somebody posted in the chat, Chinese coming to wreck UK competition. So yes, this is actually a film to add a UK competition, but I believe these are Chinese teams. So these are the teams in IQ that are like clearing the fields.
Yeah.
And,
And you can see their scores. They're so much higher than everyone else's. If you look on robot events, you can see.
So these are, I think that the school is the Bestic teams or something, from what I'm just reading on the video description.
So
Yeah, so it's pretty crazy. They each go for like half the field. Um, their driving could definitely be a little better.
yeah, I think the
I think the
driving
balls
could be
just don't
worked
always
on a
move in the
lot.
same way, so they can't practice it very well.
Well, for me, what I think they both should have gone to their side of like right next to the ramp first, and then turned around and gone backwards. Because having one robot have to loop around the ramp, you see them getting away of each other right now where it's playing on the screen. So I guess it's where it is.
Yeah,
But
and they also
they
get in the way of
spend
each other's way when one of them has to come say like, "Oh, it's my turn to shoot," and then the second one is climbing.
yeah, they
That
spend a lot of time trying to grab those last couple balls too, and it's just they spend tons of time. They end up not shooting them because
yeah,
it took
the
so much
coordinating between each other could definitely use some work. So you can definitely tell that they're probably doing better scores in practice. You can see what they could be doing in practice. Um, so yeah, I'm gonna call the stream. We will be announcing the next date pretty soon on the VEX forum. We have to work out exactly when everyone will be available. And 1104 has to both get better from being sick and compete in the provincials on March 5th, which should be pretty. It might be, and I think it will be pretty like earth-shattering with the scores we see from them. So I'll see you guys later.